AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show for your Friday. Matt Patrick here, somewhere around here. Brett's roaming around the studio. Watch your back. I think he's got some blood vendettas he's trying to finish up. End of the first quarter, that sort of thing. The bookwork stuff, monkey's paws and things.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those survival horror video games. Like you kind of don't want to find Brett.
No, well, it's kind of safe. He's here listening to this. Safe words for all the time. Stay away from Brett. 952-946-6205. We love you, Brett, man. 952-946-6205. Yeah. Hey, guess what? A special weather statement now issued for Belle Plaine and Blakely. Hail. I'm just seeing this one come across the line. It's just, the blizzard warnings now have been extended into Minneapolis, St. Paul. We've extended the blizzard warnings for both south and east and central southern Minnesota, western Wisconsin. This is from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. on Saturday. This includes the Twin Cities metro area. Great. What are we still at 5 to 8 is what they're saying? 5 to 8 inches of snow.
I think 3 to 7 was what I was seeing, but
tell me if that's the case. It's getting lighter.
Yeah.
Oh, and got the same storm system's got tornadoes hitting Little Rock. 6 to 7 is what they're saying in the next 24 hours. And it's all going to fall within like a 4-hour period. It's going to fall just like in mass. So I think it's a good bet to say tonight, get into your bed, snuggle on in there with the old covers, take care of yourself. And then just don't go on out till tomorrow morning when you probably have to plow or whatever it is, or shovel, whatever is going to be the case. That's just going to be freaking magical. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Safety first, kids. Safety first. So far, we are on Lazaro watch right now. So far, nothing has transpired in regards to whether they've got a verdict yet. I'm sorry. After the trial we just saw, I'm thinking this is going to be, a tight few hours here, and that's they're going to wrap this up. So far, though, I'm looking at Lou Roos who's over there at the courtroom. Just wondering if they're going to have a verdict today. We'll have to see. My guess is going to be yes. I don't know if it will happen sometime before the show is done. But it was such a thin line that Lazaro was trying to define going into this trial, that yes, he had sex with these children, and yes, he gave them stuff, but at no point was the giving of the stuff for the sex. He was just an honest person who liked to have sex with 16 and in one case it sounds like 15-year-old. That kind of got blown apart by his former buddy's notes, but that's kind of what you're at. So we're keeping an eye on that. Dr. Joe joins us for an update on the healthcare world. That starts here at 3:35. Coming up here a little bit later on as well. I'm kind of excited about this. We have got author going to be joining us. It is Cray McCallie. He's got a book out. It's an interesting story. He's actually friends with Metza. He knows Dr. Joe. Basically he's written about music and going across the country. And I wanted to get his thoughts on this because he says it might not be too late. We can still pull ourselves together. Hopefully that is the case. We'll have to see if that is the case, but we'll have him come by at 4:35 or so. I think I want to start off today with the, I guess, agreement, if that's the right term, the agreement that they want to put forward in regards to the Minneapolis City Council and the police and, holding the police accountable. Minneapolis City Council Friday morning unanimously approved a sweeping plan to reform policing that aims to reverse years of systemic racial bias. The 11-0 vote means the public can now read the 144-page settlement agreement between the city and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, which charged the city with a pattern of discrimination in the wake of the 2020 murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. This is the legacy of George Floyd. City Council President Andrea Jenkins said shortly before the council voted on the agreement, which restricts a host of aggressive police tactics, seeks to reduce officer misconduct, and support the wellness of cops on the street. Just some examples that were quoted earlier in the later version of the story today that was updated after the vote. Officers will no longer be allowed to pull over drivers solely for mechanical issues like a broken taillight. The smell of marijuana won't be enough to justify a search and frisk. Officers will have the duty to intervene if they see a fellow officer breaking the rules. If they fail to do so, they could be disciplined as severely as the officer breaking the rules. Mayor Jacob, they could be. Now, I am not sure about this. Mayor Jacob Fry hailed the agreement, which emerged after staggering and sometimes strained negotiation between the city and the Minneapolis Department of Human Rights, but he also acknowledged challenges ahead, especially when violent crime flares. We're asking you to stick with us, Fry said in the morning news conference. We're talking to everybody. We're asking you to stick with us through thick and thin. There will be moments that some of us will say that this agreement needs to be pushed aside. I'm having a hard time imagining stronger provisions that can have been negotiated at this point, said Councilmember Elliott Payne, said of the policy changes, some of which have already been implemented and many of which have been demanded by reform advocates for years. So from the earlier story, I want to break down what is some of the deals here. And I, like I said, I'll tell you what, I'll start with police accountability, because I don't know if does this really give us police accountability, or does it just streamline the process to not allow there to be police accountability? I think that's a legitimate question. And granted, this is a 144-page deal. I'm just reading off the Star Tribune site, but what I'm seeing here, I don't have a lot of faith. And I want to remind people, in the wake of George Floyd, the police department of Minneapolis went on a hunting expedition against the citizens of the city. The Stallings attack. We've seen the body cam footage, which, once again, the Minneapolis police frantically did not want people to see, of a police department that is so freaking out of control, it's hard to even kind of imagine. And to my knowledge, there has been zero freaking accountability. That was 2 years ago. There has been no accountability. People should be in jail because of what happened on the videos of the Stallings case. I want to repeat that. People should be in jail for what they did to the citizens of this city. And yet, hey, we're going to let you retire, and make sure you file your I've got PTSD claim, and off you go. Buy you a freaking food truck down in Arizona, for God's sakes. Here is the police accountability stuff. The settlement prescribes a process for handling misconduct complaints against officers so they won't stall for longer than 6 months, except under certain circumstances. All right. When I read that first sentence, the first thing is that, wait a minute, except under certain circumstances. Well, if you do create an out that allows the misconduct complaints to go longer than 6 months, then what guarantees do you have that you won't basically have the ability for the police department to funnel all these complaints into that exception rule that basically allows the police to commit misconduct that goes unanswered? The city's Department of Civil Rights will convene a review panel for misconduct allegations that will forward its findings to the police chief. I'll get back to that. The chief will then rule on whether the allegation is sustained, not sustained, unfounded, or exonerated. The chief can also exonerate an officer, but put flag a policy failure. Here is what I'm talking about streamlining. What you've got is the city's Department of Civil Rights will convene a review panel. All right, great. That's a good idea. But the review panel should have the ability to punish the police officer. It is determined the police officer crossed the line from policing to abuse. I mean, that should be the case. What happens is, no, the review panel can say, hey, we've discovered this, but then it goes back to the police chief, who can then basically becomes the sole decider in this case. And as we saw with the past few police chiefs, they don't, as they go on out there and they put on their sad face and their earnest face and they go out there, gee willikers, we really need to have some accountability behind closed doors. There's no freaking accountability. Arredondo, who was considered to be a great, reformer, guy working at trying to get this stuff done, basically was, he allowed the guys in the Stallings tape to all retire and run away and have no accountability. Just disturbing. So, this is what I mean. It's like, so instead of having a police policy that basically allows people to not get held accountable, now you have a police chief that basically can determine if people get held accountable. And my guess is the chief is going to get his stern wagging finger out, waggy, 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 and basically say, well, we're not going to sustain this allegation. But we're gonna flag this as a policy failure. And boy, oh boy, waggy, waggy, waggy. Whoa, we're getting serious here. Minneapolis Police Department must continue to develop a body and squad camera policies. Police will receive new training on how to respond to police showing signs of mental illness or severe agitation. Now, I think that the last part there, the severe mental illness, clearly, I think that what's happened with policing is it become more freaking militarized. It's become like we're an army unit, and you're not. It's not warrior training. It's not. You're a police department. And whereas I think in the past, well, at least with white people, the police did a fairly decent job dealing with mental illness, and they have forgotten that. And that's not just Minneapolis police. I think police across the country are having to, after years and decades of this warrior training, that sort of thing, they're having to relearn how to be police officers that are not basically looking to Rambo it out to begin with. That how do you de-escalate situations? So I think that, once again, I don't necessarily think that there's a Minneapolis Police Department problem, because this is something that clearly has been going on all across the country. The removal of a steadied hand for military style, that sort of thing. And so I think that that's something that's there. The body camera policy. This is simple. All body camera footage is released within a week after a major incident. End of story. Part of the problem that we have is that when the body camera footage matches what the police say, they can't come out with it fast enough. There's no conflict. There is nothing. Here it is. Let's get this video up here and show you. This is just quality police work right here. When it's not, then all of a sudden come we got privacy issues that we need to make sure we're covering here. This is privacy issues. Oh, this is privacy issues. And even when the trial of Stallings was over, which, once again, when the jury saw the body cam footage and saw exactly what the Minneapolis police did, even though the city attorney the Hahnemann County attorneys was trying to get him into jail for 8 years, even though they knew he had done nothing wrong, the jury came out and said, yeah, he did nothing wrong. We're gonna rule with the victim here. Even after that, they did not want to release the body cam footage because it showed that their entire argument was bull crap. It showed the entire thing was bull. And so I think police departments have to do a better job with, here it is. Yep, there's some bad stuff here. We're addressing it. We are firing this person. This person's on suspension. We're going to recommend criminal charges, whatever the case may be. But once again, I get the opinion of the police accountability side of this whole deal, that basically, as opposed to a police department that's running cover for whether it's a manager or a senior manager, it's now just going to be the police chief. And the police chief's whole job is to basically say, I don't see a policy failure here, but I've got my stern wagon finger out. I got my stern wagon finger out. So, I know this is the Minnesota Department of the Minnesota Department of human rights that's doing here. And the DOJ is doing their own investigation. And that's actually going to, my guess is going to be a far harsher finding and a far harsher return on this. But this is, I think until, and this goes back to when you were changing the ballot initiative here. As long as you've got that fairly obnoxious police union contract that basically does not allow them to be punished unless they feel as if they can be punished, I just don't know how you're going to get real accountability here. And frankly, and as the reason why this is, and we got to remember, the reason why the Department of Human Rights, basically went after the Minneapolis Police Department is because it was undeniable that the Minneapolis Police Department was targeting minorities. And I have done this radio show for 13 years now, 13 freaking years. And in my time, how many times has there been a questionable or just outright what the heck's going on moment with the police department where this basically is, damn right we're racist, and what are you going to do about it? And that's kind of the mentality. And I'm glad that we're finally getting some change, but sweet Jesus, should it take you having to murder a man in the streets of Minneapolis for you to basically say, well, maybe there's a problem here? You think? If I called the police or the fire department and had them kind of try to put a fire out and they immediately murdered someone in the street, I would think you would have a problem with the fire department. And I do not think it would take that long in this state to get some major changes in said fire department where they murdered somebody. But it's the police department of Minneapolis. And once again, I support the police. This is not a problem we run into in pretty much every other jurisdiction. Sure, there might be a problem here or there, but I think at the end of the day, one of the things that actually I do feel confident is the vast majority of police departments are not completely, run by what seems to be a mantra of hate. You don't see this with Bloomington. You don't see this with Hopkins. You don't see this with Maple Grove. You don't see this with White Bear Lake. You don't see this with Lake Elmo. You don't see this with Woodbury. You don't see this with Inver Grove Heights. You don't see this with the county attorneys as prevalent, or the county sheriffs as prevalent. You don't see it with the state patrol as prevalent. Sure, there are some problems every once in a while, but it's not this never-ending cavalcade of crap. 952-946-6205. More on this when we do return. Plus, once again, Dr. Joe in about 10, 15 minutes from right now. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Winter fun is waiting for everyone at the Park Tavern. The Park Tavern is a great get-together location for family and friends. The food at the Park Tavern is outstanding with something for everyone. Pizza, wraps, sandwiches, burgers, salads, entrees, pasta, and wings. Take advantage of the best bowling lanes in Minnesota and enjoy the full menu while you bowl. No matter what your favorite sport is, the Park Tavern has all the big games on its many screens. And if you're looking for a private event, the Park Tavern offers private event packages for any size group. On Louisiana Avenue north of Highway 7 in St. Louis Park, warm fun this winter awaits you at the Park Tavern.
Hi, Matt McNeil here. On December 8th, I was driving home in my Toyota Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota. At a traffic light, a car slammed into me. Without a doubt in my mind, if I hadn't been driving a Sienna, I wouldn't be here right now. The car is designed to take a wallop and keep the people inside safe, as it did for me. It's one thing to hear someone talk about safety standards. It's another to become an example of the safety standards. The Toyota saved my life, and I will always own one. If you want real safety, visit Rudy Luther Toyota. Rudy Luther Toyota, the corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hey, it's Tom. Since 2009, All Energy Solar has been providing solar energy solutions to customers. With fully licensed electricians and installers, you can be sure that your solar installation will go smoothly. The team at All Energy Solar understands that every customer is unique. They'll take the time to survey and understand your property to find a solar solution that works for you. One of the biggest advantages of going solar is the opportunity to take advantage of the many solar incentives available. But it can often be confusing to know what you're qualified for. All Energy Solar professionals will help you find out what savings you can apply for and even help with your applications. This is especially important since many rebate programs have limited capacity and are first come, first serve. So it's important to have a professional on your side who will make sure you get every eligible rebate. Get a free no obligation assessment from All Energy Solar's commercial solar specialists by calling 800-620-3370 or visit allenergysolar.com.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. So going through some of the other things that are changed here with the deal with the Department of Human Rights in the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis. Stops and searches. Much of the tentative agreement is dedicated to police surrounding when police officers in Minneapolis can stop and search vehicles and people in the streets. It seeks to limit the so-called pretextual stops, the use of minor traffic or equipment violations as a legal way for police to pull over drivers they wish to investigate. We should talk about in Brooklyn Center. When wasn't the whole point there was they had an air freshener. Jesus, really? Come on, that's it. It's funny. I've started after that. I drove around for a while and I noticed there's a lot of people that have air fresheners that are white who I don't see them getting pulled over all the time. I'm making an observation. A draft agreement prohibits police from stopping cars for low-level offenses such as failing to display tabs, not properly signaling a turn, or having a broken taillight, mirror, or other equipment. Instead, the city would issue a notice of repair to the driver in the mail. When officers pull over vehicles, they may professionally greet passengers but can't question or require passengers to produce identification unless they have good reason to believe the person is a perpetrator or a victim of a crime. Officers similarly can't frisk people for weapons during stops without reasonable suspicion. The settlement says it also prohibits them from searching an individual solely based on the smell of marijuana, because that is the biggest load of horse crap I've seen in a long time. I mean, hey, I'm sorry. That is, if there's anything that just screams to me abuse of a police abuse, it's that I smelt something, so henceforth I had him on the ground with my knee in his back. I smelt something. Whoever smelt it dealt it. I think that was a truly a landmark Supreme Court case. The police department on data sharing. Data tracking, rather, I should say. The data tracking. The police department would install a series of computer systems to enable it to publish monthly public reports online that detail each time an officer uses a stun gun, baton, chemical irritant, or chokehold firearm, or when the officer strikes a person. Monthly reports would also include incidents in which officers' use of force was found to violate city policy and times when an officer failed to properly de-escalate a situation. Police would publish an annual report documenting each time an officer was disciplined or not after violating certain police policies, and monthly reports with the number of officers disciplined for violating non-discrimination policies. Training. The agreement would require the agency to rewrite its use of force policies on the code of conduct, emphasis that as officers value the sanctity of life and the dignity of all people, which is just your side of your car says protect and serve, right? Go back and watch the Stallings tapes. Seriously, go back and watch those Stallings tapes and tell me if you think that anything there says protect and serve. I mean, my God, value the sanctity of life and dignity of all people. That should be a basic. Rank and file officers would use the lowest levels of force needed to ensure their safety, stop an attack, make an arrest, or prevent escape, aka you don't shoot first and then see if this was a criminal. Chemical irritants would be banned for the use of crowd control, except for rare scenarios when approved by the chief or a designee. This has to do with that horrible human being of a cop, the ex-cop, who basically ran and has the food truck down in Arizona now, that basically went past a peaceful protester, rolled down the window, and sprayed the crowd with chemical irritant because she's a jackass. And I almost said the bad word. She's a jackass. That one. That human being who we should never allow to come back to our state. That disgusting creature. Dear Lord. Seriously, what cop thinks, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spray these people because I don't like them. God, horrible human being. Just, burn in hell. That's all I got to say to you. Just burn in hell. State oversight would require more rigorous use of force reporting by officers who are expected to document specific details on every interaction in which they use a weapon or cause physical injury. Any officer who observes a colleague using what they perceive as an unreasonable amount of force must attempt to safely intervene by verbal or physical means. If they fail to act, they may be subject to discipline. The problem with that is that actually is a policy a lot of places already have, that if you see some guy just hauling off on some guy, just haymaker after haymaker right into the grill of some guy who's handcuffed on the ground, say, That's actually, you can't do that, but you know, it's not, it's a police officer that has, I've seen too many cases where police officers are interceding in those situations, and then them themselves are getting punished because they're not going along with the crowd, sort of thing. Supervisors must immediately respond to the scene when a subordinate officer uses force that results in an injury so they can identify witnesses, collect evidence, and ensure medical care is provided. Heaven forbid. Police would also create a new training plan to instruct officers not to use citations or arrest people for conduct that offends, annoys, or insults an officer unless the conduct physically interferes with the officer's duties or threatens public safety. Officers would also receive a mandatory 16 hours of training to address racial disparities in arrest trends, civil rights, and the city's history related to racial inequity. Social accounts. The agreement notably lacks details about the police department's use of covert social media accounts. Among the most shocking allegations in the original charge described how police created phony social media accounts, sometimes with no authorization, to surveil Black people and organizations unrelated to criminal activity, and without operating similar accounts to track white supremacist groups. The allegations came a point of contention during negotiations, temporarily stalled talks of the city's legal team said they couldn't substantiate the claim. Sure. Implement enforcement. Hennepin County judge would hold the ultimate power for enforcing the settlement. Each year, Minneapolis Police Department would conduct a review to ensure its policies continue to meet the agreements. Well, I mean, it sounds nice. It sounds nice. Outside of, the social media stuff, you guys got to fix that. But I've got hope that the Department of Justice will come in here and actually clean up things and make this a lot better, because like I said, I don't have any faith right now that the process that they've just proposed will actually hold police officers accountable. And at the end of the day, I think that there's just too many things that are missed here. So, but city council went along with it and went along with it quick. But I think the residents of the city of Minneapolis are damn tired of paying out how many dollars for bad police behavior. I mean, that's, hey, that is the very least bar we can cross, right? Not making sure we're not wasting taxpayer dollars. But apparently that seems to be the only way that we get change here, is if we point this out, as opposed to saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't beat the living daylights of the citizens or go on hunting expeditions against the citizens of the city. Maybe, just maybe, the police that says protect and serve actually protects and serves. Heaven forbid. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Dr. Joe, when we come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
This is Angela Warner from Warner Stellian. Does everything seem more expensive these days? Once you get over the sticker shock, then there's tax. Well, Warner Stellian's offering some relief. Whether you need to replace a broken appliance or you're ready for that appliance you've dreamt about, we invite you to take a vacation from inflation during our 7.5% tax rebate sale. On top of instant savings, now through April 3rd, we'll also save you the tax. There's no better time to buy, and no one will treat you or your wallet better than the appliance specialist, Warner Stellian.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. At our firm, we specialize in cases where our clients tried to do the right thing by reporting illegal or unethical conduct and were demoted or fired. There are laws in place that protect people like you who tried to do the right thing by reporting a problem but were retaliated against. At MJSB Employment Justice, we are fearless advocates who will protect your rights and obtain justice, whether it be a Fortune 500 company or something smaller.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation is the leading contributor to high energy bills, cold rooms, and ice dams. Great news, the energy-efficient pros at Snap Construction can fix it all. Stop the heat from leaking out and save. Call 612-333-SNAP or visit snapconstruction.com for your free infrared energy inspection. Install with Snap Construction and qualify for over $750 in rebates and incentives. State and city programs are now offering 0% financing for qualifying insulation upgrades. So call Snap Construction for your free insulation energy consultation and start saving on your energy bills. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed insulation and exterior contractor in the metro area. Visit snapconstruction.com.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy today with highs in the mid-30s, but strong winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. Then tonight, rain turns to heavy snow with a low around 20. Make sure to check out the new Maggie's Lounge at Crooner's Supper Club, serving up light fare and cocktails. No concert ticket is required. More information at croonersloungemn.com. Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley off 694 and Highway 65.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Dr. Joe Eastman is our COVID expert. We've had him on the air here for a few years. He has worked for NASA, he's worked for the LTER, he's worked for Colorado State University. He's currently part of the University of Texas Austin COVID modeling team, lives in northern Minnesota, and is kind enough to join us today to talk about the latest he has to deliver. Hi, Dr. Joe.
Hello, man. How are you doing this Friday?
I'm doing well. You had your power was out this morning. What was up with that?
I have no idea. We're still experiencing winter up here. About 40-mile-an-hour winds. It's cold, snow. Stop, Uncle.
Well, I like Brittle Star, the Canadian comedian. I love his comment. He said, it's not spring, it's hungover winter. And that's what we got. We got hungover winter right now.
Oh Lord! It reminds me of a couple of years ago where we didn't have spring; we just jumped instantly into summer. So
it is. We're going to do the same thing again. As a matter of fact, I was looking at kind of mid-April. It still is only going to be mildly above 50. By that time, it should be 60. And all of a sudden, I guarantee you, what's going to happen? We're going to have it'll be all of a sudden a 20-degree jump, and we won't get cold again. And that's a jarring. You know this as well as I do with health things. That's actually pretty jarring on the system. And as people get upset about daylight savings time, you have these instantaneous 20-degree switches. You have a lot of people who die because of that.
You're precisely right. I mean, your whole microclimate is kind of a effect on your health. So, yeah. It's not good.
Okay. So I want to get into your report today a little bit. I read through this earlier and I'm like, okay, doke. We got some things we got to talk about, but overall, I want to kind of get your assessment. We've had COVID. We still are having deaths. We still are having some problems out there. It's not as bad as it was. But, overall, I mean, obviously there's the concern about COVID reemerging or a new disease emerging. But in regards to where you're feeling, are you coming down a little bit? Or are you still just really on edge saying that this is just too much of a dangerous situation?
Yeah, there's quite a group of us that are still, we're not singing unicorns and puppies right now. My brain is going about 100 miles an hour the last week of all the stuff I've been reading, and I'm pretty apprehensive right now. What we're getting lulled into is what I believe is a kind of a false sense of security in many ways, and I kind of form an analogy like a cancer that's slowly growing inside you, and then all of a sudden you realize you got it, and oh boy, there's not much we can do now. This long COVID stuff is really getting serious now, and that is the one that is really keeps me up at nights right now.
Well, and you have in some of your reports, you have actually come back to it because it's not just one or two things. There is just really terrifying to a point. Research, which naturally this is just it's coming out because we're now getting people that have been infected for as long as it has, and we're seeing the real side effects. The consequences of the long COVID are really scary.
I mean, all of a sudden, all these ones start popping up about people losing their vision. The brain inflammation is the scariest one because that's eventually going to work its way throughout your entire body. Sudden deaths are starting to occur for people that have supposedly been recovered. And I'll put it this way: there's a new metric out that the UK is using now, and instead of just looking at the deaths on a daily basis, they go back and they track a person from 28 days from when they first tested positive and look at the death rate from that. And what they're seeing is this, and I noticed this back in September. I was like, holy buckets, this is not looking good. There's a trend towards the baseline, as we go through these little mini waves that we're getting right now. And then it returns to a low level. The low level is getting higher and higher. It just keeps elevating. And the same thing is occurring in the deaths throughout the globe. So there's more to it going on than just a COVID infection. And it's got to be, due to this long COVID that's going on right now.
From what you just said, I want to make sure we clarify. I mean, I've understood what you just said correctly. What you're saying is now that the research is showing that 28 days after an infection, the death rate is actually getting higher. We might not have as many infections, but the consequences of the infections seem to be far greater. Is that correct?
You nailed it.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. And the other thing that I need to point out is we're in the United States, we're starting to see a little uptick in the deaths again right now. And using my method to backtrack it, it's in one of my older newsletters. You can kind of get an idea of how many cases are actually out there based on just these underreported death rates that are coming out daily. And when I looked at it today, it's up to 300. It was down around 250 last week. So if I apply my calculations to that, we are looking at roughly 300,000 new cases per day that are not even reported. We're reporting about 23,000 a day right now because there's no testing. That's part of it. The other thing is we are building up our hybrid immunity through vaccination and natural immunity from previous infections. And what we're seeing is the new variants are causing more kind of mild flu-like initial symptoms. But the problem is that thing is burying deep into your organs and causing this long COVID that we are seeing manifested now. So it's kind of a strange situation going on right now. And I would estimate there is at least probably 10 million cases walking around out there in the United States right now of people with COVID. So,
which brings up something you put on your current report that's out today, and this one stopped me in my tracks. And I'm just going to read. This is a tweet you reposted from TACT. COVID lungs, viral presence in the lung up to 359 days after the acute phase of the disease, including the patients with negative swab tests of their schnoz. The lung of PC patients are characterized by the accumulation of the type 2 cells. And so basically what the research is showing is that even if you are long cured, that they're finding COVID in your lungs up to a year later. And then on top of it, it brings up talking about women that had COVID during their third trimester and how that's affecting the babies that are being born of this. I mean, this is a disease which, I mean, it's stunning at how many ways it can come at you.
It really is. And we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, as you alluded to earlier. We're finally getting enough data points and time since initial infections to really start discerning some of the complications from long COVID. And good luck getting that out of your system once it's embedded deep into your organs. What are you going to do? I did try to publish a few immune studies that might help us out down the road, but these things are basically in their infancy, and without proper funding, they'll probably never reach a viable status where it's going to really benefit us. And now I'll throw this on top of it. The Biden administration is not going to they're not going to continue funding our wastewater monitoring systems. It wasn't even in the last budget.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's up to the states. That is one of our best early warning systems that we got now that we don't test anymore. And it's also useful for other diseases they're finding, polio and measles, all kinds of things that we can discern from our wastewater samples that, that could disappear too. And where does that leave us?
Well, and the
in
science
the woods.
and the science behind that is amazing, because it's, as you talk like measles. Well, it was prior to COVID. If all of a sudden it would take 3 or 4 people going and getting, being diagnosed at a hospital for measles, and they realize, okay, we got a problem here. But by that point, you've already got massive spread. This is a way to kind of keep really a finger on the pulse. I also will say this. One of the things I found to be amazing about this COVID and the long-term things is how it's changed. Because we remember it was, you'd lose your sense of taste. You might get really drowsy, fatigue, and stuff like this. But now it's the rise in the hospitalizations, kidney, cardiovascular problems, blood clots, pulmonary issues, fatigue, diabetes, mental health. I mean, these other problems, which weren't initially, I don't want to say weren't initially part of the problem. I think we're maybe overlooked to a point, but now we're starting to see that this is more than just losing your sense of taste, that the long-term COVID, the people that are getting it and the people that are getting it now that are having these other cases, the consequences seem to be far more, and I don't know if this is the right term, but robust than what we've seen in the past.
Oh yeah, the severe outcomes. As this thing keeps going through its mutations, it's about done with the spike mutations, but that mainly affects the transmissivity and infectivity. It's starting to go into the body of the virus, and I think that's partially responsible for all these other manifestations we have coming out of the long COVID outcomes that we're seeing now. And there's some simple things we can do, like retrofitting our HVAC systems and encouraging masking and distancing and things like that. We got to slow this down. I've never seen the amount of mutations at this rate of any virus that I can remember in recent history. So if we don't slow it down, this long COVID, we're going to be dealing with it for decades. So I'll put it that way. And, we don't want that. We don't want to leave that on our younger generation, as you alluded to, with all these new studies on the infants and the young people and what they're going to have to go through. So we got a lot of thinking to do, and I feel like the snowball is rolled down the hill, where us scientists that are going, hey, wait a second, we can't stop that sucker now, and it's worrisome.
I think the thing which is crazy is that I've never seen a disease where we basically, the most layman of us all, have just determined it doesn't cause a problem. You don't see that people doing that with like cancer. They just say, well, cancer's not a problem anymore. Grab me some smokes. They just don't do that. But yet with this, they want to so much, because I think so many people were so annoyed with their interruption of their lives that they had, that the idea of they just kind of downplay it and still this is no longer a problem when it still is a problem. Can I ask you, where in the United States right now, in the U.S., where is the worst the rates right now? Do you know?
The Midwest is kind of experiencing the worst problems right now, and there's the new variant of that's really starting to raise some heck is you see what's going on in India. Holy buckets!
Yeah, well, why don't you explain that a little bit? What is going on over there?
That's the XBB 1.16, another one of these recombinant viruses, mutations. And they've had a 400% increase in deaths now in the last 28 days. The cases just, the last 3 days in a row, it's set records going back. You got to go back almost 6 months to find levels that existed in India, but they're currently going on. And remember, India is second to the United States in the most COVID infections that have occurred in any country. They're starting to stress we got to get back to testing. We need more masking. They're starting to panic a little bit over there. Anyways, this XB16 was first spotted in North Carolina, but it's made its way into the Midwest, and we're starting to see impacts. I think Texas is going to be creeping up here pretty good here in the next couple of months. We're not going to see these huge surges because A, the numbers are underreported, and B, the symptoms, people are like, oh, I just got a mild flu, with little knowledge that, oh boy, this could end up being long COVID. So, that's kind of where we're at right now. And boy, we got to keep our eye on the ball here because we even got a Deltacron new mutation. It's a combination of Delta and Omicron. Oh my gosh.
Deltacron? Oh dear Lord.
What next, right, man?
Well, all right, so let's go through this because I know people are going to be out there, and I know they're going to roll their eyes, they're going to shrug their shoulders, they're going to, they're not going to pshaw, they're going to say this is no big deal. But we need to remind people: if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you're in a large crowd, wearing a mask is not a bad idea. With spring break going on right now, if you're taking a flight anywhere, a mask is a mandatory thing. I would make an argument. And and I just think you still got to be very careful and diligent.
I know it. It's got to the point where my own family rolls their eyes at me because I tell them new things. They're coming up and they're like, "All right, Dad, we've been hearing about this for 2.5 years. Enough." So it's tough, but I guess I'll just keep plugging along. And there's a lot of us out there that are doing the same, and that's all we can do. And folks like you that are doing your part. And thanks for mentioning that. You're spot on with what we got to do going forward, and I appreciate that.
I will say that you need to follow Dr. Joe's, his blog here at josephseastman.substack.com. You can find it there. I'll put a link to that as well. And we have to be careful because, like I said, all of a sudden you get one mutation out of India, and all of a sudden we're back to DEFCON 1 like we were back in 2020. And no one wants to go back to there, but you know what? If we just still don't take it seriously, that's the surest way we are going to get back there.
Yeah, and I got to thank you for plugging that. And I'm getting hospitals subscribing to my newsletter now. I can't believe it. It's like, oh, okay, and we're getting a little notice, so maybe we'll build up some momentum and keep going on. But thank you very much for what you do.
No, thank you. No, seriously, thank you for what you do. You're the smart one. I'm the trained chimp. So you are fantastic, Dr. Joe Eastman. Like I said, I'll link to everything a little bit later on. Thanks, Dr. Joe. I do appreciate the time.
Yeah, you have a wonderful weekend and enjoy the Final Four.
I will. Thank you very much. I'm looking towards the Frozen Four for sure. Dr. Joe Eastman, let's take a break. Come on back. Wrap up hour number 1 when we do return. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hi, this is Laura. Tune to Food Freedom Radio this weekend. We will be talking about the Regenerative Agriculture Food Systems Summit held last week in Chicago. Joining me will be Erica Campbell with Kiss the Ground. Kiss the Ground is more than a movie. And John Kemp, founder of Advancing Eco Agriculture and a top expert in the field of biological and regenerative farming. Food Freedom Radio, Saturday at 8 a.m., Sunday at 9 a.m., or anytime via podcast. Food Freedom Radio.
The St. Paul Art Collective is thrilled to announce the return of the St. Paul Art Crawl this spring. New for 2023, the St. Paul Art Crawl will now span 4 weekends from April 14th through May 7th. The event will showcase the work of local artists from 10 distinct art districts in St. Paul. This year's crawl promises to be bigger and better than ever, with 21 different venues hosting hundreds of talented artists, live music, dance, and delicious local food. As the longest-running art crawl in the United States, the St. Paul Art Crawl is an iconic event for art lovers and collectors alike. You can explore the city's diverse neighborhoods and experience the unique creative vision of each artist. The casual and family-friendly atmosphere makes it a must-attend event for anyone looking to support local art while having a great time doing it. So wander the St. Paul Art Crawl and discover the wonder of it all. That's 4 weekends spanning April 14th through May 7th. More at stpaulartcollective.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Tanky.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Tune in to AM 950's newest show, Searching for Service, a show designed to help current and future Rotarians find purpose through service.
We are dedicated to sharing stories, experiences, and opportunities for those searching for purpose, value, and meaning.
But more importantly, connection through community. Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcasts.
It's time to stop searching and start serving.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is, Dr. Joe does. I know there are conservatives who are out there that want to look at him and say, oh, crazy hermit that lives up in the cave on the hill who keeps screaming about the apocalypse. He's not. He's using science. He's using math. He's using numbers. And I swear, you try to find a fault in anything this guy's doing. His numbers are solid. And the reality is we are living in an insanely fragile world right now where, what was it? Bird flu I saw has now jumped to seals. Was it seals or otters? Maybe it was otters that they were having bird flu, which that's jumping species. And people have said bird flu, if bird flu are chronic wasting disease or something like that jumps to humans, dear Lord. I was talking about this with a friend of mine who's got a dog, and I was talking about blastomyosis. And if you know, blasto is a disease that dogs get. And if you go up north, if you're up in north on a lake, and you come across a bay that's called Dead Dog Bay, do not let your dog get off the boat and go into that bay. Do not do it. And the reason why is my dad always told me, and is that those are the bays where there's blasto, and blasto is a kind of if I'm wrong, it's mold or fungus or something like that grows in the ground, and the dog inhales it, and it's done. There's just nothing you can do to save the dog. Humans do get it. I think down in like Tennessee, they get it, and they barely survive. I mean, it's barely surviving down there. But dogs, it grows in the soil. My parents, they had a dog that somehow got it. 9 months old, done. Nothing you do about it. It's the case. So you got to be careful about that. There's a lot of things that are out there that if we get them, if they start jumping to humans, we don't have cures for. And, I still am pretty amazed at how the medical industry and the federal government reacted initially, that they were able to get vaccines out and kind of get this testing out. But the reality is we are back to square one if a new disease comes on out or a new version of COVID comes on out. So, yeah, it is something we have to keep an eye on. Hey, breaking news. There's apparently a verdict in the Tony Lazzaro trial. That took longer than I thought it was going to, if you want to know the truth. I don't know how this is going to go. Sometimes these things get drawn out. I got Craig McNeil coming up here in the bottom of the hour, in the 4 o'clock hour. Hopefully we'll have the verdict by the time we get to that time. Once again, a verdict in on the Lazzaro trial. We'll have that for you coming up in the next hour. Hour 2 up next.
Hey, John, I heard you're turning 65 this year. Time to start comparing your Medicare insurance options.
I am so overwhelmed with all the different Medicare companies and plan designs. I don't even know where to begin.
Really? I worked with CompareYourMedicare.com, and they made my Medicare decision seem easy.
Huh, really? Well, what do they do?
CompareYourMedicare.com represents several of the top Medicare insurance companies in Minnesota. A local licensed agent will help you compare Medicare plans to determine which products best meet your needs and budget.
Wow, that sounds a lot easier than going to a bunch of different Medicare seminars on my own.
Way easier. Just go to CompareYourMedicare.com and request a free, no-obligation review. You can even schedule a virtual consultation from the comfort of your own home.
Hi, this is Jared with CompareYourMedicare.com. We pride ourselves in serving our community's Medicare needs. Whether you're planning to retire early or work past age 65, we can guide you through how and when to apply for Medicare. Go to CompareYourMedicare.com to schedule a consultation.
It's Brad Friedman, your friendly investigative blogger, journalist, and host of the Bradcast on AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Court officials say former President Donald Trump will be arraigned Tuesday in New York. A grand jury has indicted Trump after an investigation into hush money paid during the 2016 presidential campaign to squelch allegations of an extramarital sexual encounter. Former Vice President Mike Pence was asked about it.
The unprecedented indictment of a former president of the United States for a campaign finance issue is an outrage. And I think it's clear to the overwhelming majority of the American people that this is nothing short of a political prosecution.
The former president has denied any wrongdoing. A former federal prosecutor is going through the process next week. The AP's Sagar Magani has the story.
David Weinstein says it'll likely play out the way it does for most anybody else facing charges. The ex-president will be fingerprinted and get a mugshot taken, but don't expect to see him in handcuffs.
It is very unlikely, and I would say almost to a 99% certainty.
Then it's into the courtroom to hear the charges and make a plea.
Presuming he enters a plea of not guilty, and I think that's a safe bet, the court will then address the issue of pretrial release.
But the process will be both routine and extraordinary at the same time. While lawyers are generally not allowed to be with their clients, Trump will have his Secret Service detail with him the entire time. Sagar Magani, Washington.
More severe weather is moving through the South. The tornado emergency was issued for Arkansas's capital, Little Rock. People there are being warned to seek safety. President Biden is in Mississippi to look at tornado damage there.
Jill and I are here to show our support. Unfortunately, I've been to too many sites like this over the last 2 years.
Stocks are higher at the close, helped by a new sign: inflation is easing. This is AP News.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation is the leading contributor to high energy bills, cold rooms, and ice dams. Great news, the energy-efficient pros at Snap Construction can fix it all. Stop the heat from leaking out and save. Call 612-333-SNAP or visit snapconstruction.com for your free infrared energy inspection. Install with Snap Construction and qualify for over $750 in rebates and incentives. State and city programs are now offering 0% financing for qualifying insulation upgrades. So call Snap Construction for your free insulation energy consultation and start saving on your energy bills. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed insulation and exterior contractor in the metro area. Visit snapconstruction.com.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shamblat. My dad is Dr. Scott Shamblat from Shamblat Family Dentistry. A lot of people are afraid of the dentist, but you don't have to be. My dad makes going to the dentist comfortable and even fun. He won't be mad if you haven't seen a dentist in a long time. He just wants to take care of you and your teeth. If you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblat Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblatfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy today with highs in the mid-30s, but strong winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. Then tonight, rain turns to heavy snow with a low around 20. Make sure to check out the new Maggie's Lounge at Crooner's Supper Club, serving up light fare and cocktails. No concert ticket is required. More information at croonersloungemn.com. Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley off 694 and Highway 65.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show. I'm not going to bury the lead. Tony Lazaro, guilty on all counts. Conspiracies to commit sex trafficking of a minor. 5 counts of sex trafficking of a minor. Guilty. Guilty on all 6 counts. So that's the verdict has been read there. Yeah, I got a lot to get to there. But and we'll talk about that now. Once again, Craig McCauley going to join us. An author. He's got a book. He was out on the road. He's got an interesting take on things because once again, we're talking about how the country might seem like it's apart, but he found that there's hope for us. We'll talk to him about that a little bit. In the other, with the other major trial that was going on at this time, we should mention the Gwyneth Paltrow trial. Did you see any of this trial at all, Patrick? In any regards?
Well, I saw the updates on it. I didn't have any interest in following it up close and personal, but I'd get the updates on it.
The argument he was making was, Gwyneth Paltrow is the size of my thigh. And yet that she hit him with enough force because apparently she was, crashed icing it down the hill there. I'm sorry. I thought the whole thing was ludicrous. The jury sided with Gwyneth Paltrow on Thursday, deciding she was not at fault for a 2016 ski accident with a retired Utah optometrist who sustained broken ribs and a concussion after the fall. Terry Sanderson filed a $300,000 lawsuit against Paltrow, alleging that the reckless skiing caused her to run into him from behind on February 26. The collision left Sanderson with 4 broken ribs, a concussion, and lasting brain damage that affected his daily life and personal relationships. The jury, which began deliberations early in the afternoon, agreed that Sanderson was, in fact, at fault, not Paltrow. And this, by the way, happens all the time where you'll have, someone will call an accident, cause an accident. They'll see a celebrity's involved and they say, well, they did it. I do feel sorry. People who want celebrity, you don't really want celebrity. You just don't. It's not something which you can control. It's not something that you're going to like. It is, it is, tough to say the least. I felt that acquiescing to a false claim compromised my integrity. Paltrow said in a statement after the verdict, I'm pleased with the outcome. I appreciate the hard work the judge and the jury. Thanks for their thoughtfulness in handling the case. Paltrow told the court that the Sanderson who's at fault for the collision. She testified she initially believed he was being assaulted when a man came up behind her and put his skis between hers and groaned. And Sanderson categorically hit me on the slope, and that is the truth. So, speaking of cases here, Fox News this is breaking news from the New York Times. Fox News suffers major setback in its defamation case. The judge said it would still need to proceed the trial with a jury to weigh whether Fox News spread false claims about Dominion voting systems and determine any damages. This is a significant setback for Fox News in its defense against the $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit that claims it lied about voter fraud. The judge in Delaware Superior Court said the case brought to you by Dominion voting system was strong enough to conclude that Fox hosts and guests repeatedly made false claims about Dominion machines and their supposed role in the fictitious plot to steal the election. Yeah, so yeah, they're going to be paying a lot of money. I think you're going to be paying a lot of money. I want to actually start with Lazaro trial. I want to start off with the earlier story about the closing statements from the trial, because this will get, when I get to what Lazaro's own attorney was saying, the fact that we've already got a guilty verdict within hours of them going into deliberations is, I don't think is really a surprise. The prosecution and Lazaro's defense each made their final cases. Assistant U.S. Attorney Melinda Williams began her closing arguments by telling the story of a man who seemed like he had it all: wealth, business, success that fostered meetups with celebrities and politicians, a Ferrari, a luxury downtown condo. But the 32-year-old Lazaro wanted more. She added he wanted sex, and not just any sex, Williams said. As the 2-week trial reached its end, he wanted sex with minor girls under the age of 18, and he had a plan to get it. Lazaro, once again, was facing conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of a minor, 5 counts of child sex trafficking. He has been found guilty on all 6 of those counts now. His attorney, Daniel Gertz, countered in the final pitch to jurors that the government had failed to prove that his client was guilty of sex trafficking minors over the course of a salacious prosecution based on completely unfounded allegations. Now, I want to stop there because I want to go back to what Jack had said earlier this week when we had Jack Rice on to talk about this case. Jack had already said this was an uphill battle for him because they already had a close associate who was flipping on him. And like I said, it was on Wednesday, I believe it was, when on Wednesday, he's still trying to make the argument that, once again, sure, I had sex with the kids and sure, I gave them money, but those two things didn't have anything to do with each other. And by the end of the day, the Bittman evidence that was handed to the prosecutors that basically proved that a lot of his argument, a lot of his story was not true. It came crashing down for him when he's getting to the point where he's like, I don't admire Jeffrey Epstein, for God's sakes. Here is the line from his attorney. And I'm like, okay, so I want to make sure we understand. This is Lazaro's attorney, his attorney on his closing argument. Okay. The prosecution clearly disapproves of Mr. Lazaro's Playboy lifestyle, Gertz said. And frankly, as the father of 3 daughters, so do I. But that's not why we're here. Paraphrasing, but that's not why we're here. When your own lawyer is condemning your actions, then I don't think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't have nearly the case you think you do, because I'm stunned, and I mean stunned when I read that. That's that's his own lawyer saying that. That's his own lawyer's comment on that. During the closing arguments, Williams outlined how Lazaro enlisted young women he initially paid for sex, instead start recruiting other teen victims, preferably minors. Lazaro's co-defendant, Gisela Castro Medina, 21, pled guilty, testified against the man. Her sentencing comes up in, I believe it's August. Williams said that once Lazaro's minor victim stepped into his 19th floor Hotel Ivy condominium, Lazaro had a playbook on or breaking in process that involved money, presents, alcohol. Williams said Lazaro would offer to listen to the girls' troubles. He called it an art. Lazaro, once rising Republican donor in Minneapolis. Okay, yes, he was a Republican donor. He was far more than just a Republican donor. I've used the crap modern term influencer, but that's basically what he was. He was close friends with, at that point, the head of the Minnesota GOP in Jennifer Carnahan. They were close friends that this was going on while this was going on. He had influence on campaigns. He was apparently working on things within the Minnesota Republican Party. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly the full account, but it was more than just a little bit. And so I think we need to step back on this, because once again, in Minnesota, we get a different perspective. And I'll get to that here in a second. Let me, once again, just in case you're just joining us, the verdict is in the Lazaro case. He is guilty on all 5 counts: conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of a minor and 5 counts of sex trafficking of a minor. Earlier in the day, and by the way, when this was read, Lazaro shook his head as the verdict began to be read. At least one victim began to cry and nod in agreement. Others nodded as well to this here, because I can't imagine. Yeah, it's got to be pretty horrible what they went through on this. They were talking about how, they're how much time that he was going to get in regards to this case. And it's not nearly as easy as how much prison time. This is Lou Ragus over at 11. Wondering how much prison Lazaro will receive if he found guilty. Short answer, it's very complicated. I ran past a lawyer and a trust with lots of federal experience, and he calculated guidelines ranging from at least 15 to 24 years, but said the actual sentence could be much higher. So, and I do believe there are lawsuits against Lazaro right now that will go to civil trial, and that's going to be the case there. So Republicans across the country are trying as hard as they can to try to make it seem as if drag shows and transgender people are the biggest threat to your kids. In Minnesota, the biggest threat to our kids seems to be Tony Lazaro. I have daughters. I have one daughter who is 15 years old, soon to be 16. This story, this whole thing has made me furious. Furious not only because of Lazaro and his actions, because this is a guy who, it's clear there are, and for all the Lazaros we do know of, think of all the ones we don't know of that are out there right now who are preying on young girls and children because they feel as if their money and their wealth shields them from any kind of accountability in this. But what makes me furious is that the same Republicans who are screaming about saving kids are silent in regards to what happened here with Tony Lazaro. Silent. They don't want to even, here is an actual crime. As opposed to this whipped up far right extremist fantasy about how a drag queen story hour somehow is subjecting kids to something evil, which is at best a far-fetched theory. Here is an actual person who was bringing young girls up to his place, giving them alcohol, having sex with them, clearly abusing them. And they don't even want to talk about it because, it's a little embarrassing. I would at least have some level of respect for any Republican. Well, I'll tell you what, give one good one, Broadcorp. Michael Broadcorp. Broadcorp's come on out. He's been, now he is, I don't think he is nearly on the campaign against the drag shows and the transgender people as much as other people are. But he's been very vocal. This is ugly. This is horrible. But even if you were one of these people, you could say, hey, you know what? I'm not for drag queen story hour, but let's be honest, this is absolutely far worse. We have a case here and stuff like this should not happen. It's almost like they're reluctant to condemn it. Not a theory, not a far-fetched, ill-advised theory, an actual case of abuse. That is what makes me furious, is that this is real. And granted, here in Minnesota, anytime one of these Republicans comes on out and talks about we're jeopardizing children, the next word out of any freaking DFLer's mouth should be the following words. Well, let me tell you about Tony Lazaro. Guilty on 6 charges. Guilty on all 6 charges. Conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of a minor, 5 counts of sex trafficking of a minor. Of a minor. So don't you dare try to make up your fake outrage about, how you're trying to protect kids when this was going on. I am happy with the verdict. I'm happy with the verdict. I'm happy with the way things have gone here. But, at the end of the day, like I keep saying to myself is how many more Lazzaros are out there right now? Plying young girls with alcohol, giving them, a purse or a cell phone or a vape pen and vape pen, really? Searching out the girls who are emotionally damaged, searching out the ones who are easy to abuse because they are suffering from, anxiety, depression, mental health issues. How many more Lazzaros are out there? Because once again, there are a lot more than we probably want to acknowledge. And there are probably people out there that people know this stuff is going on. And they're just choosing to kind of ignore it. So I'm not sure. The fact that Lou Roos has not put out I'm going to presume that there's going to be the sentencing will happen on another day because, so far he has not put out anything as far as how much time it is. And once again, I think as he mentioned earlier in the day before the verdict came down, that it's not nearly as cut and dry of just saying, oh, here's the verdict and here's the amount of time you're going to serve. It's going to be the case. But once again, would I be surprised if this ends up being closer to 30 years in jail? Might be. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Let's take a break. Come on back. Hey, I got great news about stadiums. They get you championships. I'll talk about that when I return. It's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Scott Shambot from Shambot Family Dentistry. We're the fear-free, shame-free dental office. If you're having a dental emergency, we'll try and get you in the same day you call because we don't like to see anyone in pain. And we'll help you get through every appointment in the most pain-free way possible. As my daughter Rachel says,
if you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblat Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblatfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
Hey, Twin Cities, Latunji with Latunji's Palette Bakery and Cafe located at 1400 Park Avenue South in the Elliott Park community. We invite you to discover the best peach cobbler, coffee, soups, salads, and sandwiches in the Twin Cities. And also, you can find my delectable treats at North Market Grocery Store, Annex Farmers Market, Plant-Based Pop-Up, Bobby and Steve's, Handsome Hog, and our website, latunjispalette.com. That's latunjispalette.com.
The St. Paul Art Collective is thrilled to announce the return of the St. Paul Art Crawl this spring. New for 2023, the St. Paul Art Crawl will now span 4 weekends from April 14th through May 7th. The event will showcase the work of local artists from 10 distinct art districts in St. Paul. This year's crawl promises to be bigger and better than ever, with 21 different venues hosting hundreds of talented artists, live music, dance, and delicious local food. As the longest-running art crawl in the United States, the St. Paul Art Crawl is an iconic event for art lovers and collectors alike. You can explore the city's diverse neighborhoods and experience the unique creative vision of each artist. The casual and family-friendly atmosphere makes it a must-attend event for anyone looking to support local art while having a great time doing it. So wander the St. Paul Art Crawl and discover the wonder of it all. That's 4 weekends spanning April 14th through May 7th. More at stpaulartcollective.org.
Tune in this Saturday morning right here on AM 950 for the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show from 7 to 8 a.m. We'll be discussing perennials in your garden, as well as container gardening 101 and the benefits of cooking in cast iron. That's all this Saturday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on AM 950. Tell a friend and let's grow together.
This update for you on the weather here. There's a special weather statement for the metro area. This basically goes from Eden Prairie up towards Plymouth and Crystal. This is valid till 4:45. Wind and possible hail, penny-size hail possible. This pretty much includes a good chunk of the west metro from 494 in the south, almost all the way up, probably up to Bass Lake Road, up on the north side of the metro. So Minnetonka, St. Louis Park, Crystal, Plymouth. Don't be surprised you see some a little bit nastier weather here for the next few minutes here with wind and some hail possible. including here at the Palatial Broadcasting Complex. Are we still on the air? Have we haven't lost power or anything, have we? I'm not just talking to myself again, am I? Hi, self. How are you doing? I'm okay. How are you doing? I can go for some canned cheese. I know it's delicious. Never, sorry. Pardon me. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Hey, you know what? One thing I think we've all learned here, how wrong was I? I gotta admit, when they said, stadiums get you championships, we have been buried in them ever since we built all those stadiums out there, Oh, it's been delightful. Actually, we haven't won any, have we? No. Well, I mean, the Lynx, they're pretty good. But we keep building stadiums because stadiums get you championships and not winning champion. I want to bring that up because that's the stupid argument that they put forward to start this whole thing. This is how you're going to do it, Yay, go team, go. When you factor in the cost of the stadium, when you factor in all the additional stuff that we had to do with, upgrading infrastructure around the site, yeah, as I said, I can't even imagine how it could be less than $2 billion to build the U.S. Bank Stadium. And guess what? It's the project that just keeps grabbing into your pocket and yanking out your taxpayer dollars. U.S. Bank Stadium, the home of the Minnesota Vikings, world champion Minnesota Vikings, right? Oh, no. Oh, God, no. First, oh, no. Oh, no. Not that. We'll just go with the Vikings. It will require some $280 million in maintenance to remain in top condition over the next decade, including nearly $48 million next year, according to architectural assessments released on Friday. Is there sufficient money to cover these? The answer is that is no, said the Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority Chair Michael Vekich. That is the work that we have to do collectively with stadium operator ASM, the Minnesota Vikings, and the governor and the legislature. Hey, that's us, kids. That's all us. The Vikings and the public made annual contributions. By the way, the Wolves, have they gone to a new location and started looking around saying, yeah, I could see a new stadium right here. Have we gotten that yet? Because that's coming. It's coming. And same thing. I tell you, nothing I despise more than these idiots that will scream there, don't give hungry people food, you're wasting my taxpayer dollars, who will then come out and say, this is such a good investment. I love the Vikings. We're not going to be a legitimate state if we don't have a football team. Just shut up. The Vikings and the public made an annual contributions to the Stadium Capital Improvement Fund, which sits at just over $16 million. The audio-visual room, one of the areas that needs work done, is alone expected to cost $14 million, the report said. Kansas City-based Populous, an architectural firm specializing in stadiums and arenas, conducted the facility assessment on behalf of the MSFA, which oversees the 7-year-old building on behalf of Minnesota taxpayers. By the way, have they ever finished that building? I don't know if they've ever finished that building. The MSFA paid $527,500 for the assessment. Well, I know where we could cut costs right away if you want to know the truth. Beginning in late December, a Populous surveyed the building, found it was in very good shape overall, according to senior principal architect Brady Spencer, who specializes in football stadiums and made the presentation in the MSFA meeting. The assessment included cost estimates for maintenance, including the anticipated 4% annual escalation. Funny story. You try to put an escalation into, the minimum wage or, school funding, and they say, oh, no, but, hey, we need a 4% annual escalation in the cost because it's a football stadium. Oh, gosh, where do we sign? Yeah. All of a sudden, everyone's an economic expert then. Really, the important thing about this is protecting your investment in the stadium, Spencer said. To conduct the analysis, Populous inspected the entire building, taking photographs to document the condition of everything from the concourses and structural steel to the zinc panels on the exterior. It also looked at all mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and audiovisual systems. Each area was categorized as good, fair, or worn. Good condition meant no signs of use and well-maintained. It's 7 freaking years old. How much wear and tear could there be? It's not like we're having a nightly heavy metal concert in the place. It's 7 years old. I live in a house from the 1950s. It still holds up pretty good. Dear Lord, it's 7. Areas said to be in fair condition include the service corridor, the main concourse, some directional signage, floor tile and grout in the restrooms, chipping on the door. Areas said to be in poor condition include weather stripping on doors, which Spencer called typical for stadiums, a damaged concession display on the upper concourse, and the in-house stadium TV distribution system, which is nearing the end of its life. It's 7 freaking years old. How can it be ending its life? It's 7 years old. God. Yeah, we got all those great stuff from Radio Shack before they closed. It's 7 years old. Dear Lord. Spencer called the analysis a roadmap to protect and preserve U.S. Bank Stadium. He praised MSFA for doing the assessment so early in the life of the stadium. It's hard to catch up. MSFA member Bill McCarthy asked about the conditions of the stadium's clear plastic roof and the black zinc panels that wrapped all the panels had to be replaced after the building opened due to moisture problems. But hey, we'll pay for that, right? Yeah. God. Spencer said the roof and the panels were in very good condition. Only use was damage to one zinc panel near a doorway. Folks, this is in, and guess what? If we don't do it, guess what? Ziggy starts flying to, I don't know, St. Louis, I guess, and starts looking around and saying, yeah, I can see a stadium here. Or flies to Portland, Oregon and goes, yeah, I think I can see a stadium here. Flies to Salt Lake City and, oh, yeah, I think I could see a stadium here. And the same people who say, don't give my money to schools and don't give my money to hungry people and don't give my money to the homeless and don't go help these people are like, we can't pay enough in taxpayer dollars to make sure my favorite sports team stays here. Because I love buying $100 jerseys. In a People's Stadium where, once again, I tried to get tickets when I had a friend come in town. The cheapest ones I could find were $100. The cheapest. That's not the People's Stadium. Just a massive siphon of taxpayer dollars. Imagine, I get it. You love your Vikings. Imagine if that team wasn't here. Imagine having that much money to go around to help out needy causes. Dear Lord, it's 7 freaking years old. What do you mean things are in poor condition? Oh God. 952-946. Yeah, dang right I'm mad. Dang right I'm really angry. I'll tell you what, let's take a break. Come back. We'll change direction completely. Craig McCalley is going to join us when we do come back, and we'll talk about his book that he's got coming out. 952-946-6205. It's the Matt McNeil Show on AM 950.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation is the leading contributor to high energy bills, cold rooms, and ice dams. Great news, the energy-efficient pros at Snap Construction can fix it all. Stop the heat from leaking out and save. Call 612-333-SNAP or visit snapconstruction.com for your free infrared energy inspection. Install with Snap Construction and qualify for over $750 in rebates and incentives. State and city programs are now offering 0% financing for qualifying insulation upgrades. So call Snap Construction for your free insulation energy consultation and start saving on your energy bills. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed insulation and exterior contractor in the metro area. Visit snapconstruction.com.
This is Gregory Rich, host of Drink in the Style and owner of Habitation Furnishing and Design. People often ask me, why habitation for my home? Well, I could give you hundreds of reasons. I could talk about the extensive collection of furnishing suppliers or our exceptionally talented design team. I could talk about service, but the truth is, habitation clients come back room after room and home after home, and that speaks volumes. Habitation puts some drama into your interiors.
The St. Paul Art Collective is thrilled to announce the return of the St. Paul Art Crawl this spring. New for 2023, the St. Paul Art Crawl will now span 4 weekends from April 14th through May 7th. The event will showcase the work of local artists from 10 distinct art districts in St. Paul. This year's crawl promises to be bigger and better than ever, with 21 different venues hosting hundreds of talented artists, live music, dance, and delicious local food. As the longest-running art crawl in the United States, the St. Paul Art Crawl is an iconic event for art lovers and collectors alike. You can explore the city's diverse neighborhoods and experience the unique creative vision of each artist. The casual and family-friendly atmosphere makes it a must-attend event for anyone looking to support local art while having a great time doing it. So wander the St. Paul Art Crawl and discover the wonder of it all. That's 4 weekends spanning April 14th through May 7th. More at stpaulartcollective.org. With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy today with highs in the mid-30s, but strong winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. Then tonight, rain turns to heavy snow with a low around 20. Make sure to check out the new Maggie's Lounge at Crooner Supper Club, serving up light fare and cocktails. No concert ticket is required. More information at croonersloungemn.com. Crooner Supper Club in Fridley off 694 and Highway 65.
I will say, things don't last as long as they have. My mom has at her place, she has a stove that's like 7 years old, and it's got to be completely replaced. And I said, how is that even possible? Well, it was the computer. They had one of those computer programming things. The whole thing, the guy came in and said it would cost me as much money as a new one just to replace that one computer pad. Like, wow, I didn't really think of that as a disposable item, a gas stove, but apparently so. But, I just, the stadium is 7 years old. What do you mean things are in bad shape? Dear gosh, man, what do you got, a howler monkey exhibit you're storing in there on the weekends? Stop it. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Hey, let's turn our attention to Cray McCallie. He is joining us. He's an author. His book, American Twilight, is coming out of Sleepy Bear Press. He's kind enough today to talk about his book, as well as also we're going to blab about some of our friends here as well. Hey, Cray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Matt. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Congratulations on the book, American Twilight. Is this your first book?
That's my second book. I had one I put out in the 90s called Weapons of Illusion, and now this is my second book.
Congratulations on this. We should say we have multiple friends that cross over. Dr. Joe, who we had on last hour, but also Metza, and apparently you have an interesting story about when you met Paul Metza.
I do have an interesting story. My friends, I'm from Rochester, and my friends were going to school up at UMD. And Paul's band at that time, Cats Under the Stars, was playing over in Superior the night of my friend's 20th birthday party. And we went over to Superior to the Beachcomber Club, and may have been overserved a little bit because at the end of the night, my friends were looking for me to go back to Duluth, and they couldn't find me. And they went up to the bandstand and asked Paul, "Hey, have you seen our friend Cray?" And Paul goes, "Well, I don't know his name, but I think he's the guy sleeping on that pile of coats under the table."
I have been there
so
myself.
That's how I met. That's the first time I met Paul. So.
Oh, and we had Paul on last week. He's just an amazing individual.
Oh, he is, man. So talented. What a great, singer, songwriter, guitar player, now poet. Yeah, he's impressive talent. That's for sure.
So let's get to the story behind this book. It's interesting because it kind of, if I can say from what you described earlier today, it's a good way to describe it, almost like an accidental book. Is that a good way to say it?
It is. It started out as a different project. A friend of mine is a business owner and entrepreneur down in Florida, and he hired me to work on a book on the history of the company that he owned. And then about 9 months into the project, he decided to put the company up for sale. And so the project changed, and then it went through a couple different metamorphosis and ended up becoming this book of poetry based on some of the writings I had done for those previous projects.
But you weren't necessarily hired originally to do poetry, correct?
No, I was not, but he knew I was a poet. We went to school together at the university, and him and his girlfriend at the time came to my release party for my last book. So he knew I was a poet, and I do a lot of online writing, and he knew I was still working on my poetry. So then the book kind of shifted into that mode as the sale of his company became imminent. So
you end up traveling for this book across the country quite a bit, correct?
Correct. Yes. We went to a company we worked for had a couple RVs, and we went, drove from Florida to Minnesota and then to northern Wisconsin and back 3 times, and got to see a lot of the country on that. And then did a couple trips through Florida up to the Panhandle and spent some time up there. And that was really interesting because of, you see the resort towns, and since the hurricane in 2018 there, Hurricane Michael, I believe, the resort towns are really booming again, but the interior towns on the Panhandle are still in really bad shape. So it was really a weird juxtaposition. And then a couple times we took the RVs up to New Orleans for concerts and to Jazz Fest. So yeah, I got to see probably 25 states in the last 20 months.
And you said Colorado as well. Did you make it out to Colorado as well?
Yeah, we went out to Colorado for the 4th of July in 2020 and saw a concert at Red Rocks, and then went and took part in some of the All-Star Week festivities that they were having there for Major League Baseball. And it was really fun. And then from there, we drove to Minnesota, and then went back from Minnesota back west to the Black Hills and spent a week in the Black Hills, which was really cool. I'd been through there, but never really spent any time there. It's just beautiful.
I've always found driving across the country is rewarding, not only because you get to see, some pretty amazing parts. I mean, I myself driving through Kentucky, I'm like, how pretty is this state? And it's like, and you got, it is truly kind of a stunning place as you go these places. But the reality is as you just described with the Panhandle, and you're there, what I really think you get a better view of is, if you're paying attention, to see the dichotomy of America. And you see the one side and the other, and regardless of whether that is Republican, Democrat, wealthy, not wealthy, left, right, whatever the case may be, you to see that and to see it so bluntly laid out, I imagine is not only, it is stark. It gives you a better idea of the society that you're going into, but as well as also as far as a writer, it must give you better inspiration.
Oh, totally. Like going to New Orleans is really a trip because the neighborhoods there, especially post-Katrina, it goes from extreme wealth to extreme poverty in some neighborhoods with like 2 blocks. And it's really interesting. When I was down there, I was on the trolley car going out to the Midtown City Park in New Orleans. And I don't know if you remember the footage from Katrina, but they had the nursing home that got flooded and some of the residents there died. Well, that area now has become gentrified and beautiful houses. Well, that building still stands there like a wraith because there's so many lawsuits still. And that's literally the only asset that company owns. So that sits there abandoned in the middle of this beautiful neighborhood. It's really a trip.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead.
The dichotomy is really interesting in the South because, like, here in the North, it's a little more hidden, especially here in Minneapolis, where the neighborhoods, are kind of seamless. They don't, there's really not much differentiation. But down south, it's noticeable really quickly.
Oh no, very much so. And when you see the other side of town, I mean that cliche, I mean that comes from the South, where they don't have any problem not helping the people on the other side of the tracks. I mean, that really is a really stark reality.
It sure is. Yes, definitely.
Joining us right now is Craig McNeil. He's joining us talking about his second book here, American Twilight. As you see this and you go out there, and obviously driving across the country and then going and seeing these concerts and seeing like this, and Red Rocks, what a great venue that is, and and seeing some of the great American cities as well as you go around. One of the things I think is interesting that it seems like you kind of resonated around was the idea that music. I mean, sure, there are musicians who are on one side of a political aisle and on the other side of a political aisle. But the reality is you go to a concert nowadays, you probably are around. It's one of the few places that you can go left that it really truly is a complete look at American culture, because most concerts, you're going to have people who are on all sides of the political aisle and all sides of differences still going there and seeing that. And music is still one of those last bastions that we have that you can get out there and still be with the other side, per se.
Oh, definitely. So like we did the Dark Star Orchestra band, which is the Grateful Dead tribute band, tour of Florida right after Thanksgiving in fall of 21. And, it was like old Florida redneck hippies, and, it's like, these are the guys Skinner grew up with, I'm a huge Skinner fan, and, and that's a weird deal, because half of that band were liberal guys like Gary Rosington, and then after Ronnie Van Zant died and his brother took over as the lead singer, and he's a total right winger. So right in that band, they have that dichotomy.
It is kind of it's like the interesting culture. You go out to like Oregon and you're like, they're a bunch of potheads, but these are some of the smartest business people I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't, kind of adjust you.
I had my medical card down in Florida, and you want to talk about a weird cross section of people, go wait in the dispensary before you go in to see your bud tender. And you get very wealthy retirees from the Midwest and the East Coast. You get young people, and a very odd cross section there.
So I think one thing that we can learn, and I'm going to presume this with your book, is that you do find what brings us together still is music, and kind of regions of this country that even if you are of one side of the other side of the aisle, that there's still those unique elements that bring you together within music and within specific regions, correct?
Oh, totally. And like one of the main poems in the book is on Johnny Cash, and Johnny Cash, he totally strived for that, to reach out to both sides, to, back in the 60s, to the generational thing. He had his TV show, brought on Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Linda Ronstadt, that generation. But then he also had the older country people on there too. Mm-hmm. So there's, music is really the through line of America. It is in jazz and blues and rock and roll. In a way, it really is America's art form. And, and so many people, get inspired by it, no matter, like you say, where left, right, young, old, there's always something to reach it, reach someone. And if it can move people, then it can bring people together. And, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to try to do with my book, is, I'm on the left side politically, but, I realize what good things the right brings to the equation. Mm-hmm. And I realize the differences that American people, I could, you go out west and you could see why they're red states, the culture there is, a lot of small towns, a lot of rural areas, people are independent and depend on their neighbors and their families. And, there's something to say about that, about the community that's derived from that. So I look
at Johnny Cash.
I don't think we're all that different. I think there may be 5 or 6 issues that separate us, really.
Oh, I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly with that, because you look back at Johnny Cash and you bring him up. I mean, he played a prison. And he played a prison because he the Gospel of Matthew, he was, going out there and, you take care of the meekest of us all, that sort of thing. And so he had no problem doing that. And it's such and if I can say, badass thing to do, but it wasn't a stunt. It just was who is the guy he was. He would go play anywhere for anyone. And he really put that out there. And my God, if we had more people that would do that, I think we would be a better country, because you really do you can find inspiration from some of these people. And I think this is why, how many years later, Johnny Cash, I love Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson. How about we put out Willie Nelson as well? These guys
90, he's got this huge festival coming up for his 90th birthday in 2 weeks in California. It's just amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing that show in Somerset with Robert Plant and Alison Krauss warming up. Yeah, that's going to be great over in Somerset.
Oh, my dad and I both listened to Willie Nelson, and we both got something out of it. And he was born in 1929. I was born in 1968. And there's not many artists today that you can get that kind of range with. That is.
I got a funny story about Johnny Cash. My dad's cooler than I am, because he's seen Johnny Cash 3 times, and I've only seen him once. One of our friends in Rochester, when we were growing up, his dad was one of Johnny Cash's doctors at the Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
So when Johnny would play the state fair, they'd always take a party bus up to the state fair and go see him. So my dad did that like 3 times. And then I saw Johnny when he played at the State Theater in probably 94 or 95 with the Jayhawks.
Okay.
And, so it was my dad's seen more Johnny Cash shows than I have. So
yeah, it's the guys that are so multi-generational that they're so rare today that's the case. But I think your point about the real difference between us and the other side of anyone is maybe 5 or 6 things. That at the end of the day, that for the most part, that we can still agree with it. It's just stop prioritizing your life around those 5 or 6 things and try to find the other things that we actually can unite around.
Hey, like this winter, a friend of mine from Rochester and a friend of mine from up here in the cities took me to a bunch of high school hockey games.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about community, and it's just everybody, with their tribe, and it's like, it's a good thing. You see, the generations, you've got the grandparents, the parents, the kids, now I'm in that grandparent range. And, we were at the Wild, had the Grateful Dead tribute night the other night. My friend brought his son, and they were sitting like 3 rows in front of us. And I was watching his son watching the game, and it was totally like my brother and I with my dad at a hockey game, going to see the North Stars or the Gophers back in the day when we were growing up. And that's the cool thing, it's family, friends, community, and that's everyone yearns for that. Yeah. Doesn't matter where you're from,
And I think that message today, considering the narrative I've heard from some people after, and I don't want to get you into the politics of it, but after the Trump indictment, and some people saying, get mad, get ready, you're like, okay, no. This is not the path to go down. Let's find the things that can unite us, because I don't want this country exploding. I just don't. Congratulations on the book, American Twilight. Where can people find the book?
I'm on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and they can get a copy direct from me at Cray McCauley, CrayMccally @gmail.com.
At gmail.com. All right, I'll put that out.
Yep.
Cray, congratulations on your second book. Congratulations on the insight. By all means, come back at some time. I'd love to have you back again. We can talk more music and talk more about your thoughts on America.
Hey, that'd be great, Matt. Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Cray McCauley, kind enough to join us once again. The book is American Twilight. Find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and I'll put out the address where you can get it from him as well. Once again, 952-946-6205. We'll wrap it up for the week when we do return. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we have wood stoves that qualify for the new 30% income tax credit. A great opportunity to get an efficient stove and heat with renewable energy.
Right now, avoid supply chain delays, avoid the fall rush, avoid bad weather installation, and save money because we are now discounting the price on all chimney parts you need for installation for any of Woodland's new stoves and fireplaces.
We can help you with the stove and the chimney planning. Want to do it yourself? We will help you determine all the parts needed with our installation know-how. We have been installing wood stoves and fireplaces for over 45 years.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood, gas, and electric units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. Save money. Take advantage of the spring and summer chimney discounts when you buy any fireplace product right now at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces.
Do you have a car you no longer need but don't want to jump through all the hoops to sell yourself? Rudy Luther Toyota can help with their We Buy program. It's really simple. Go to rudyluthertoyota.com, click on the We Buy link, type in some basic information, and Rudy Luther will get you an instant and accurate offer. Then set an appointment, and after a quick verification of the vehicle, Rudy Luther will set you up with your payment with a check on the spot in most cases. We Buy, it's that simple. For more details or to sell your vehicle, head to rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com.
The Senior Linkage Line is a free statewide service of the Minnesota Board on Aging, helping older Minnesotans and caregivers find answers and connect to services and supports. Questions about Medicare, transportation, looking to move to senior housing, overwhelmed with prescription drug plans? Call the Senior Linkage Line at 800-333-2433 or visit trellisconnects.org, where we help people optimize well-being as they age. That's trellisconnects.org.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. So this storm is actually turning a little more nasty here. I want to take a quick few minutes here and talk about that. We got the National Weather Service has updated. They have a blizzard warning for Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is pretty rare. Sven has chimed in on that and said it doesn't happen that often. You get the blizzard warning for the Twin Cities. Now, it's still not sounding like we're going to get foot plus of snow. It sounds like somewhere between 5 and 8 inches of snow here in the metro. How much of that sticks on the ground will remain to be seen because the ground is pretty wet. And if it's windy, that will actually help melt snow too. But it's just the wind, the conditions. Blizzard warnings are dangerous. You're going to have high winds. Power outages are probably going to be common. Keep that in mind. It could be a little bit of a rough night. My suggestion is go home, buckle down, stay home, and keep that going. It's going to be rain here for a while. It sounds like looking at the forecast map, it looks like sometime around 9 o'clock, maybe a little after, it will convert over and become more snow. So just keep that in mind. And with the blizzard conditions, even if you're in the metro, that could be a little bit tough there. So just keep that in mind and be safe out there. Thanks very much to Craig McCauley for joining us a little and talk about his book. I am taking off for a week plus. I am going to, I need to take a little time off here on the recovery as this goes. Got Todd coming in, right? Todd Mickelson will be filling in for me all next week, and I'll be back on Tuesday the 11th. So have a wonderful Easter. Have a wonderful time there. Taking us out, I got my favorite music. It's Rush. Here we go. Spirit of Radio. Why not? Love this song. You be safe. Be safe tonight. Be safe for the next week. And take care of yourself. We got Native Roots Radio coming up here in the 6 o'clock hour. I'll be back on Tuesday the 11th. Until then, see ya.
Begin the day with a friendly voice, a companion unobtrusive. Plays that song that's so elusive, and the magic music makes your morning mood. Up on your way, hit the open road. There is magic at your fingers. For the spirit ever lingers, undemanding contact in your head for solitude.
Cafe Latte offers made from scratch soups, salads,